Things have been busy this past week because there are 3 new fan projects on my radar today that are completely comparable to an official Sega product. And I know that's not a crazy thing to say for Sonic. That's not me dragging Sega. It's just the fact that people are so obsessed with this character that they just make anything they want into a reality, whether or not Sega wants to give it to us. So let's start with the obvious here. Sonic Unleashed. Yeah, it's finally got a PC port. This is something we've been begging Sega for years. We've reached out to their official social media managers, I'm pretty sure Iizuka was asked in interviews, and when that wasn't enough, the community was trying to backwards port as much stuff as they could from Unleashed into Generations. You've all heard of the Unleashed project where you could play all the Unleashed levels, but we also went and did the hub worlds, a bunch of mechanics like the QTE system, and at one point, people were even trying to put the Werehog into Generations, but we just simply didn't have the tools available to do that. There were tons of hoaxes even for a decompilation of Sonic Unleashed, but after nearly 13 years of reverse engineering attempts from the community, you have these lovely individuals to thank for the recompile. You see, previously, Xenia, the Xbox 360 emulator, was the only way you could play this game on PC. And I remember just a few years ago, in like 2021, this game wouldn't even run on RPCS3 or Xenia without a very expensive PC that is allowed to get very hot without breaking. And after what feels like only 3 years of constant improvements on both Xenia and Sonic Unleashed support, this game would eventually be fully completable on emulator with just a few graphical glitches. This may not sound impressive, but like, this is a crazy jump in just a few years. I'm gonna be real, emulation is one of the most fascinating studies of technology and gaming as a whole because it blows my mind that unaffiliated software engineers can blow apart the inner workings of consoles and video games and then just release it to the public so we can do whatever we want to it. Let me really put this into perspective. This game went from a very expensive experiment that only a few people could set up to something so stable that the official speedrunning board for Unleashed allowed emulated runs on the leaderboard. Yeah. And as of yesterday, we don't have to worry about shader compilations or graphical glitches. I just played this on my Steam Deck and it held a consistent 60 FPS with graphics even crazier than the high settings in Shadow Generations. The resolution is so much more crisp, especially on the Steam Deck with a small screen. My FPS dipped down to about 40 during a really populated Werehog fight, but this is just version 1.0, and I haven't even touched any of the settings. 2 really cool features I want to highlight for this PC port. Your system icon will change depending on the in-game day and night cycle. Another great thing is that this game automatically detects music playing on your machine and mutes the in-game music. You can just seamlessly transition between this without having to go into the audio settings. The future is crazy, isn't it? And just as wild, since the recompile runs off the 360 version's game files, we can actually use a bunch of mods that were already made for the console and emulation versions on the PC port. There's going to be a lot of new stuff made for just the PC port now that we can actually take a better peek under the hood, but there's plenty for you to already try, like Shadow Unleashed, Metal Sonic Unleashed, and Like a Werehog, which is a full combat overhaul. We don't have to wait for ports to happen, like Sonic Generations and Sonic X Shadow Generations. We just get to use it. Nothing is lost. And originally, you need to use the Unleashed mod manager for your emulated instance of the game, but now there's just official support for Unleashed in Hedge Mod Manager itself. If you aren't familiar with Hedge Mod Manager, this is the software that is used to mod in nearly every modern Sonic game. I'm talking Sonic Generations, Lost World, Origins, Frontiers, Forces, Colors, Shadow Generations, and now finally, I have them all unleashed. And it just works. And let me establish something here, like, if you are playing Sonic on PC, you are modding the games. And having all of these games in one place is a beautiful convenience that I feel like can be easily taken for granted. It was such a pet peeve of mine to have multiple mod manager applications on my desktop for a bunch of different games. So genuinely, thank you, Hedge Dev team. And I'll be so real too, this game is much smoother than even Generations on PC. Now that there's uncapped FPS and everything. The cosmos is the limit at this point, dude. Now moving on, I really do adore the Shadow Generations movie DLC. A lot of skins in games, both fan-made and official, it's just a skin, you know? It's got the same animation rigging, it's just a little bit of different costume, the voice is the same, but in this DLC, they actually got the actor to make new voice lines for Shadow, and in addition to that, there's a brand new level set in movie Shadow's universe that looks like real-life Tokyo, and the Shadow skin itself is made to obviously mirror how he appears in the movie, but they've also got a brand new jump ball for him. And to top it all off, there was a loose lore explanation in the DLC to tell you why Shadow's appearance changed, why he got into the movie universe. You know, some people had issues with this pack, but I felt that it completely satisfied my imagination. We also know that in Sonic Cross Worlds, there's going to be Sonic Prime characters playable through the Deluxe Edition. And my point here is that Sega is producing a bunch of skins for the alternate depictions of these characters. And what a better way to do that than for the community to keep Sonic Frontiers alive on its 3rd year with the LEGO Sonic Skin Pack. This mod isn't finished, but there's a lot to chew on here that you wouldn't usually see out of skin mods. Like I said, typically in skin mods, it's just a simple model swap with the exact same animations on the rig. This can make some mods feel a bit out of character and awkward depending on who you're using, but surprisingly, the animations fit the LEGO characters pretty good. And it's not just that, the animations for Sonic have been altered to a lower frame rate as a nod to LEGO stop-motion films. It's genius, and that's all you really need. I mean, there's no room for wishing I had more in this mod. Anything reasonable that I could have asked for in the skin mod is done. Like, you have model swaps for every character, the stop motion reference, and wait, did they seriously remodel the enemies to be built out of Lego? Did they seriously replace rings with studs? Wait, did they actually replace the SFX with sounds from the real Lego games? The level assets and the red rings are changed to feel like a Lego game too. Why? What? I cannot believe this mod was kept secret for so long, just sitting in limbo. Really, this is the level of detail I want out of official DLC. This is the kind of thing that made me appreciate Movie Shadow while many others didn't. This changes things in a way that I can only describe as entertaining. And that's what games should be, entertaining. This makes me smile just as much as I did when I was first discovering all the secrets in Frontiers. This is a good expansion, and I thank you so much. Even the Seeds of Power are replaced with the LEGO contraptions. I'm not actually familiar with the build. Remember how I was just talking about how model swaps can look awkward, especially over the default animations? Now, there's a brand new Black Knight Sonic mod 3 years after release that perfectly conceptualizes what we were all imagining in our heads. This has restored animations directly from Black Knight, replacing his punches with sword swings. It is a personal remaster of the Wii model that keeps the spirit of 2009 intact while being high resolution without any of the ugly textures. I like that Sonic's stomp is a downward stab. One of my favorite animations to replace in Frontiers is the stomp because of the sheer impact it has on enemies. The way that he has to use 2 hands for the sword looks so gnarly. The emphasis this mod puts on Sonic's spin slash move is brilliant. It's one of the slickest moves in Black Knight. It just allows you to tear through a line of enemies, and it feels really at home put on his double jump and his spin dash. Like, I feel like I can see a cut line in the dirt every time he uses it on the ground. It just makes me feel like I'm in a playable version of the iconic cutscene where he's escaping the castle and slashing through solid rock. This jump animation doesn't really have the same momentum as a regular ball curl, but it's used cleverly nonetheless. I kind of adore how much Sonic has to charge himself in order to do high jumps in the storybook games, so it's nice to see him doing these regular jump flips instead of only curling into a ball. And he's got all of his run cycles from Black Knight as well, that you surely remember from all the little hallways and corridors out in the forest. It's really fitting too because a lot of the CG and actual game environments in Black Knight were like realistic forests with fields of grass, and that's exactly the environment you are in Frontiers. Sonic's regular super form is a gorgeously detailed rendition of Supersonic 1 with his gauntlet and Excalibur. His fur is visible, it's really shiny, and his quills have a great silhouette from a distance. I also love that his sword range is much bigger, fitting with the giant punches that he has in base game. Just like Frontier Supersonic, he has after images of Excalibur, complete with the glowing after images from Excalibur's Sonic's blade in the actual boss fight. How damn cool is that? There's even custom flight animations for the super form. I actually believe that the normal speed animation mirrors the exact animation he does in the final fight of Black Knight, where his sword is behind him and his fist is flung forward like a Superman pose. And then when you boost, he thrusts the blade forward towards the enemy, and it feels great every time. And it has a restored Excalibur Sonic seamlessly integrated into his super form, all on one mod. Excalibur is of course the Supersonic 2 transformation for this pack. The after images and the musty aura make a lot more sense on this form, of course, as he was an actual aura powerhouse literally beaming with energy in Black Knight. People criticize what the Supersonic aura looks like in this game, but I think it's like a perfect fit for Excalibur Sonic. He had glowing motes all over him. Low-key, my favorite animation in this whole mod is the parry animation, because it just turns into the block from Black Knight. It has the white shield aura in front of it, and when you actually hit the parry, he deflects it in the most badass way. It doesn't stop there, though. There's even a Cybersonic Excalibur that shows up if you use the real-time cutscenes mod. This is arguably even cooler than the playable Excalibur. And because you have working animations in the combat as well, it feels fluid, and more importantly, it feels badass. And at the end of the day, that's just the spirit of Frontier's gameplay. When they added the Monster Hunter armor, it definitely got people's brains sparking, and they're like, oh, but what if we have Black Knight? And then we went up against the Night Boss himself. But yeah, every detail is accounted for in all three of these projects. How special is that? I wanted to cover these before they're old news, so I'm just trying out this weird recap formula. And as always, the downloads for everything here are below, and give them some YouTube views as well. If you're new here, I cover all Sonic content, both fan-made and official, but check out my Sonic modding playlist, as that's usually what I do.